Hey there guys, Darryl Griffiths here. Welcome to my first official video review for Jumpcut Online. I hope you've all been very well. Today I'll be tackling the film adaptation of a Garrard Conley memoir, and it deals with the uncomfortable subject matter of gay conversion therapy, and it is called Boy Erased. This is a little snippet of the track Revelation, performed by Troye Sivan, who is in the film. Now, gay conversion therapy, this is not the first film in recent times that have tried to dissect the subject matter and its very startling nature. The Miseducation of Cameron Post towards the back end of last year was another one. Conley, it's a very personal experience of what he went through age 19 in the city of Arkansas with staunch religious parents, and they were blissfully unaware of what he was heading into, really, and trying to change him and repress his homosexuality. In the film, the Garrard character is played by Lucas Hedges, who I've been raving about for quite some time now. He was terrific in Manchester by the Sea. He's also in the film Benny's Back with Julia Roberts, that I believe is out in the UK next month, so another one to very much look out for. Hedges, in the film, he's really struggling with the idea of faith and sexuality, trying to be in some sort of a happy medium. And his parents, in the film, played by Nicole, Kidman and Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe is a car salesman and a pastor, and sort of preaches his belief and sort of enforces it upon Garrett. And Nicole Kidman sort of there's almost a blissful, rose-tinted view through her religion. And she's deeply affectionate towards Garrett, probably more so than Crowe's character, who's quite headstrong and he's adamant in what he believes and he's not going to change it for anybody. But the revelation of Garrett's sexuality comes in quite gratuitous and deeply unsettling circumstances, and it does prompt this thorough examination of religion, faith, sexuality in such, a staunch religious background, and trying to dissect it, and under a practice that is just frightening. And for me, as a gay man, it was like watching torture porn, to be honest, or what you would be the equivalent of calling horror films torture porn, in their quite gratuitous and bloody nature and how deeply scarring they can be. This film, I watched it yesterday as I'm putting this out. I was conflicted then, I slept on it, and I'm still very deeply conflicted about it. I'm going to deal with the parts that I'm really still in my head. I'm like, am I sure about this? In the controversial nature that it deals or reveals, in a sense, Garrett's sexuality in the film, it's through a rape scene with Lucas Hedges and Joe Alwyn, who plays a guy called Henry, and there are details of his upbringing that sort of come through the film as well that are just horrifying in nature. And I feel through the sequence sets a very dangerous precedent, because the film is so restrained in being overt in his homosexuality and trying to explore that through Garrett. We only really get holding hands or these really longing looks towards other men. And I think because there's not much to counterbalance the controversy of that sequence, I felt like I didn't emotionally connect to it as much as I should have done, which I feel quite sad to say. But at the same time, the sequences that are quite loving and beautiful in nature are well executed. Particularly when Garrett meets a guy halfway through, they share a room together, they're lying on the bed, sort of all cuddled up, and obviously there's a, hand-in-hand moment, but it's shot from way up above. And it's almost as if it's sort of taking the point, or Joel Edgerton, the director, is sort of taking the point of, are they blessed in this sequence as such? Or are they not being judged, like God looking down upon them sort of vibe about it? but I just didn't feel like there was enough of it to sort of counterbalance it. And I feel like, considering the LGBTQ community has worked so hard over the years to try and get away from this really outdated and warped perception that gay men are just perverts and so forth, and because there's not much to detract from the uncomfortable sequence that goes on with Alwyn and Hedges, it doesn't quite, it feels a little bit off balance. And in the first half, when it's really undergoing the therapy sequences, it feels quite militant and practical, and emotionally it felt quite distant for the most part. And even in the musical score as well, there's like little drum beats like a marching band, and all I kept thinking, although it wasn't quite as intense, I just had army cadet flashbacks, and it was sort of drilled into me, like, in terms of masculinity, and, you know, like, heaven forbid, you know, I'm sort of effeminate, or, you know, not much of a man, you know, when I was like 16, 17, and that's been forced upon me. And I just felt like you could just sense that it was a very heterosexual viewpoint, and I'm not sure whether Joel Edgerton, on the whole, who I have a lot of time for, I mean, his other directorial efforts, particularly The Gift, with Jason Bateman playing against Troye, that's a terrific thriller, but here it doesn't feel like there's not much of an argument to make. And it feels like it lets the parents off the hook, and it feels quite muted in their condemnation. But I do appreciate the fact that Connolly's been very open to the idea that the book was very much devoted to his parents, and sort of educating people that way. But in a cinematic context, it feels like the argument is a little restrained, and with the cuffs on, so to speak. And considering what the film deals with, you'd feel like there's a bit more oomph and power in, trying to call these people out. And in the moments that you do get emotionally that you connect with, especially in the third act, when Hedges and Kidman really do snap, and Kidman sort of comes round to Hedges' dealings with his own sexuality and how he's struggling mentally with the whole situation, they are powerful stuff, those sequences. And the thing is, the film is well acted across the board. I think the sprinklings of Troye Sivan and Xavier Dolan alongside Hedges in this therapy environment, although it's a complete nonsensical idea of it, they do perform really well in the film. But I just don't feel cinematically it wasn't made to punch enough, considering the subject matter. And it's hard, considering this and Miseducation of Cameron Prose came out quite, similar times within about 4 or 5 months of each other. It's hard not to compare the two, when one is a bit more overt in its female sexuality, and this feels quite repressed. And it's tough not to compare the two, in a sense. But there's not necessarily anything inherently bad about Boy Erased. I think it's well directed. If at times the colour palette and the composition sequencing feels sometimes a bit Hallmark Channel, if that still exists, I don't know. But Edgerton, his intentions are admirable and the performances are great, but as a gay man, I felt like I should have connected more with it. I really did, and I'm not sure to now. I'm glad that it exists. I'm glad that it's been made, because anything that calls out this abhorrent practice, which in America right now only 15 states have flat out banned it or deemed it illegal. There's 35 still to go. Like, the most recent one was New York City. 29 states have no slither of legislation whatsoever, and some states only have it in a local sense, but it's not statewide. And of course the UK, it was only last year that the government started to come out with the idea that, we're going to ban this conversion therapy or these practices. So there's still a long way to go. So anything that highlights that, through whether it's Cameron Post or whether it is Boy Erased, and considering the stars that are involved, it will gain traction, and it needs to be, because we're in 2019, for fuck's sake. Sorry for the F-bomb, but it's a practice that needs to be cut out. How dare anybody deem just the mere idea of loving somebody and living your authentic truth, if you like, and deem it a mental illness and try and stifle that in any way, shape or form. It is flat out disgusting to me. But Boy Erased, it's a solid film overall. Performances are great. I just wish it wasn't so restrained. I really do, because I feel if it dug a little deeper, particularly in Garrett's sexuality, and trying to counterbalance it from the more grotesque and abhorrent aspects of the film, I think would have had a stronger argument cinematically, and I just think it would have been a bit more well-rounded, because on the page it is deeply affecting. I hope you've enjoyed my review of Boy Erased. I hope I haven't waffled too much, but it's something that is, you know, it's quite strong in its content and it needs to be stamped out big time. So if films like this keep highlighting the subject matter, then I am all for it. Anyway, I have been Darryl Griffiths. You be sure to check out Jumpcut online, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter. You can like or follow our pages, and of course the website itself, www.jumpcutonline.co.uk. But for now, I've been Darryl Griffiths, and I will speak to you soon, guys. Thank you for watching. Take care.